Gamers Nexus gets ripped off by Newegg for $500. All right, so for those of you that don't know, let me catch you up. Here's what happened in a nutshell. Steve purchased a motherboard from Newegg for $500. It did say it was a open box motherboard. Now, open box means that Newegg has received it back and they recertified, they tested it that it works. They shipped it out. Steve got it. By the time he got it, they've already figured out the issue they were having with X, Y, and Z. They never even opened the box. They just put 2 pieces of tape on it and shipped it back to Newegg for an RMA, of course. He did the whole process, right? A few weeks later, he gets an email from Newegg saying that his RMA has been rejected because of bent pins, bent CPU pins. Now, here's the really, really hard part about this. It's very, very difficult to prove that you didn't bend the pins. Not saying that you did or didn't, but rather it's hard to prove it. Here's why. A lot of things can happen in transit. That's why a lot of times that CPU socket cover thing that pops off when you put the CPU on, there's a lot of things where if you RMA a motherboard, if that doesn't have that on there, they auto reject you because the pins are so sensitive, right? In this case, Steve didn't even open the box. He just sent back what they sent him. So the fact that it had bent pins, well, kind of sus. So before Steve made a, noise about it, what happened was they were like, yeah, we're rejecting your RMA, so you're not getting your money back, and we'll ship you your board, but they never shipped it, at the time at least. And it's been a little bit. He never got the board back at that time. So, of course, Steve tried calling them, going through the standard process. They didn't know exactly who he was at the time, so he called them, let them know. Then he went on Twitter and said, look, this is bullcrap, this is what happened. And all of a sudden, Newegg changed their tune and approved his RMA, gave him his money back, and, all that good stuff happened. Now, this is very concerning because, as content creators we are, even though we're small content creators, we're very, very conscious of that fact. In fact, there's some content I'm working on right now where that's an integral piece of it. If that's not there, it's not a review, guys. If I'm being paid for it or someone gets to preview something before I release it to where you guys see it, it's not a real review. It's doctored, right? It's been made to say a certain message. Anyways, so Steve's also very conscious of that too. So he basically said, wow, so because they found out who I was and I have this many followers, I'll make a stink. You guys actually approved it. Kind of sus. So kind of go into that. If you guys also know, Newegg has been having a deal with Gigabyte where their Gigabyte had these power supplies that were exploding, right? Actually exploding, causing issues. So instead of doing the right thing and recalling them all, they just dumped them all in Newegg and, made a deal with them to where they sell them with GPUs because, yeah, we got GPUs and no one else does. So you're going to buy from us and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So that's what they've been doing. And these type of practices from Newegg, it's really bad, guys. It's really bad. And I know I'm kind of long going here, but the thing is this, all right? Newegg has able to make this power dynamic with the consumer because of the current market, because of the fact they have things that we want, right? And because of that, it appears that they're trying to cut the customer service or make money by saying people bend pins and stuff, because that's a really hard case to prove. Your only options at that point are to, contact them and complain, be like, look how much money I spent, all that, or do a chargeback on the credit card, which doesn't always work out, by the way. I've actually done a chargeback, which I've lost, and I had to pay that money. Otherwise, the credit card company was going to ding my credit score, right? So, it's very concerning, especially come on, guys, why? If they just did a little bit of research to see where the address it was being shipped to, they would have known it was going to Gamers Nexus. And I'm not trying to say they should do this to anyone else, but come on, how stupid can you be, right? And the fact that they just did this to Steve, it's very concerning. And this type of stuff really gets me upset because it shouldn't matter who you are. Everyone should be treated equally when it comes to, your stuff. Especially if I sell you this green pen and you get it in the mail and I ship you a purple pen, well, I screwed up. I should be shipping you the right pen, right? That's the way it should be, not this where you just try to make extra money off people by essentially scamming them by saying they did something that they didn't. And if Steve did do, if the pins were in fact bent, that means Newegg didn't check the box. They didn't check to see that it was open, recertified, or whatever, right? So that's the story of what happened, and that's where they're at right now. As far as we know, Steve got his money back and all that good stuff. Everything's honky-dory. But of course, Newegg suffered some losses due to that. And also, not to say anything, but it appears that they hired some very attractive people to post videos for them, make videos for them, which, you know, I don't know if the company's trying to pull something weird, but it's definitely kind of sus. Just the way that Newegg has been going. Andrew, so what do you think about all that?
Right. Honestly, there's a lot going on with this story, but
Yep.
part of it is when a company decides that they'll take returns and sell open box products. Any company that sells open box, recertified, refurbished, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's open box because it's just basically returned. Whoever receives it is supposed to look at it and say, okay, yep, that's a motherboard. Okay, it's good for resale, which means, you know, they probably post-test it. And that's not to say you can't post-test a motherboard that has bent pins, you know.
Yeah, it can still work.
Yeah, it can totally still work with bent pins, depending on the severity. Bent pins are probably more common than you think when it comes to slightly bent pins. Sometimes just dropping a CPU in a little too quickly can do that, or not completely straight in can do that, but the pins will still line up with the pads on the CPU. So
There's a
that can
little
happen.
tolerance.
So that can happen. That can happen to the person who receives it at Newegg and retests it. You know, it might have been the original owner in this case, or it might have been Newegg bending the pins. But with that aside, it's just when a company like Newegg, a retailer, decides that they're going to be in the open box business, instead of writing off the loss of the product and disposing of it, that they're going to try and resell it. And they also need to have a returns department that's a little bit more accommodating, specifically on open box products, because the chances of something being wrong, not at the fault of the second buyer, is higher. So, you know, if I get an open box product and say, oh yeah, no, it doesn't work, and they say, well, then you did it. Well, you know, that's less likely to be true than if I'm the first buyer, if it's something that isn't a manufacturing defect. So you see this a lot with Amazon, where they have those Amazon warehouse deals, right? It's it's an Amazon return that they repackage and say, okay, yeah, that's good to go. We can resell that. You know, if you buy something from Amazon that's from the warehouse, there definitely is a higher chance you get something that's broken, messed up, missing pieces, whatever. But Amazon understands that, and you know, if you say, oh yeah, blah blah blah, it's, you know, it's not as it's supposed to be, they're going to say, okay, you know, free shipping back to us and you get a refund. In this case, Newegg doesn't give that same well, it just
service.
basically is, yeah, it doesn't give the same service. It doesn't understand that that's a real possibility, and it ends up blaming the customer, which is not good business, especially in this case where it clearly wasn't the fault of the customer, and that the customer was, you know, more or less a YouTube tech celebrity. But you know, it sheds light into what their real policies are within the returns department and Newegg in general. So I have returned things to Newegg, and I haven't had this specific issue, but I have had instances where weeks go by after they've received it before I get a refund.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly reaching out to them to see what's going on. And they're just saying, oh, yeah, that's being processed right now, expected in 48 hours. And then I wait a week and contact them again, and it's the same story.
Exactly.
So I don't think they have the best returns department. And maybe that's, you know, maybe it's short-staffed, maybe it's incompetent people working there. But regardless, it's on Newegg to get that fixed. And, you know, unfortunately, it's probably still going to go on, I think. but they might put some band-aids on it for now. But I think it's sort of Newegg looking at margins and saying, well, it's better for us if we just kind of screw the customer. So we'll keep doing that. While a company like Amazon, politics aside, they are much more customer focused in giving you a service that you like so that you keep giving them money.
Repeat
Newegg,
customers.
Yeah, Newegg I don't think has realized that they're replaceable.
Oh. Can I get that as a recording?
I mean, most things that Newegg has
Sounds like a
are
threat.
available on Amazon. Amazon usually has as good or better pricing. Amazon usually has as good or better shipping rates and speeds. And if I can't get it at Newegg, I can probably get it at Micro Center, or that's probably it for. Most people probably don't have an alternative if Amazon doesn't have it, but there are different alternatives for online retailers. I'm just saying, Newegg is definitely not my first choice, and it probably shouldn't be yours after this.
I only go there when they have deals, honestly. That's where I got my 5950Xs for $600.
Yeah, I've gotten deals from them, and it's like, it's almost not worth it.
No, I don't think it is.
So, yeah.
But
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that, kind of touching what you were talking about is that, exactly, politics aside, I think Amazon just is a better deal sometimes, and they got Prime. Newegg doesn't. You gotta pay something to get that. I don't remember. But like every time I bought something from Newegg, it wasn't my first choice. It was like my second or third for sure.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else on that, Andrew? Because I'm just gonna hit up chat. There's some things that came in.
Yeah, just one thing. So I bought an open box processor from Micro Center once. It was a Ryzen 3700, I think, 3700X. And it was open box, good deal, obviously, because they already have the cheapest CPUs. And then open box made it like 40 or 50 bucks cheaper. I got it home and it had like 5 bent pins, and I was like, damn.
An Intel CPU. Oh, that sucks.
No, AMD Ryzen.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it had bent pins, and I took it back, and I was pissed off. So, I expected them to have checked that. So when I get up to the returns counter and the manager comes over, I'm like, this is, ridiculous and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. We're just going to go.
You did that. Get the F out of here.
Yeah, exactly. They refused to refund my money, and they took the CPU. No.
Let me see that. Thank you. Now get out of here.
No, they gave me a new one off the shelf, and I walked out the door. So that's the kind of service you need to retain customers. And you need to be able to admit fault if you're a company selling open box stuff, because chances are, if there's a problem with an open box item, it was probably there when it shipped out.
Yeah.
It was returned at one point. Maybe it was returned for a problem, and then, whatever return guy saw it, couldn't figure out what the problem was, and said, oh yeah, it's probably fine. Send it out, and if it comes back, then I guess it is broken. They aren't that careful, so they need to just say, especially with open box, I think they just need to side with the customer if they say there's something wrong with it. I mean, in this case with Gamers Nexus, he literally didn't open the box. He made that point abundantly clear, and the reps didn't really seem to acknowledge it. So it seems like the policy is to blame the customer and not really trust them.